Hi everyone, it's Barak, your tour guide in Israel. Behind the camera is my partner in venture, Eyal. Welcome to the Valley of Jezreel. In Hebrew, Jezreel, Israel, is God has planted. Look behind me, so much agriculture. In the biblical times, this used to be one of the main source of food for everyone that lives in the region. This is something worth fighting for. Today, we're going to visit 3 spots outside of the beaten track of a typical tourist that visits Israel. We're going to talk about Gideon and his war against the Midianites and the Amalekites. We're going to talk about King Saul fighting the Philistines and at the end losing the battle. And we're going to talk about Ahab wanting more than he has, having greed in his heart and taking something that doesn't belong to him. Follow me and let's start on our adventure. Eyal, I'm standing next to a spot where one of the most interesting battles in the Bible actually took place. I'm going to take us to the book of Judges, chapter number 6. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of Midian for 7 years. And those people encamped and took and destroyed the increase of the earth. That means the people has no food. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east laid along in the valley like locusts for a multitude, and their camels were without numbers as the sand by the sea. Just imagine such a vast army is encamped right here. And God sends an angel to Gideon and says, "You're a person of valor. You're going to deliver the people from the hands of the enemy." Gideon assembles the people to war. Where? Judges chapter 7. And Gideon and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Ein-Harod. Right here, there's about 33,000 people, and God tells him, that's too much of an army for me to win the war. Tell the people to have a drink. So most of the people, like normal human beings, put their spears on the side and went and drank from the water, except for 300 people. 300 people took their spears, went inside of the water and drank the water like dogs. Why? Yeah, I don't know if you remember, well, once we joined the army, they gave me a big gun and they told me, Barak, this is your new girlfriend. For about half a year, I slept with a gun underneath my pillow because the Navy SEALs, and I wasn't on the Navy SEALs, never let go of their guns. God is telling them, this is the elite unit. You're going to win with them. Gideon takes his elite force, the 300 people, and says an immortal saying, Mimeni tir'u v'kach ta'asu. I will set an example for you to follow. You know, Eyal, when I was in officers training, this was the sentence at the entrance of the base. As a leader, you got to set an example for the people to follow you. He gives them vases, torches, and ram's horns, and they circle the enemy's base. They break the vases, they blow the ram's horns. Can you imagine the sound? People are panicking until they flee up until Jordan. Gideon won the war. It was such a victorious battle that the people are telling him, come be our king. Gideon refuses, but we know that later on, the first king will be King Saul. Follow me and let's talk about King Saul and his war against the Philistines. I want to read to you from the Bible to put us in the time plot. We're right now in a major war between the Philistines and King Saul. We're reading from 1 Samuel chapter 28. And it came to pass in those days, and the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare. They're ready to war. Samuel was dead, and all of Israel have lamented him and buried him. And Saul had put away those who had familiar spirits and the wizard out of the land. Saul kicks out all the conjurers, all the people that communicate with spirits. Where are the Philistines camping? And the Philistines gather themselves together and pitched in Shunem, which is right there behind me. Where's the Israeli army? And Saul and all of Israel gathered together and pitched in Gilboa, which is over there. Why are they fighting here? Food. This is the barn of the kingdom. They cannot let themselves lose such a spot. King Saul from that mountain looks downstairs and sees a huge army. Samuel is dead. He asks for signs from God. He prays to God. God doesn't answer. And as the Bible says, and when Saul inquired the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. King Saul is desperate for an answer. So he does exactly what he shouldn't. He goes to Ein-Harod, which is over there, and he goes to a fortune teller. Now she knows what King Saul have done, and she's terrified to do what he wants. He comes in disguise, and at the end she brings the spirits of Samuel, of Shmuel, and Shmuel is angry, saying to him, why? Why have you done such a thing? And Saul shares his frustration. Listen, God doesn't answer me. What should I do? King Saul expected some good news. Samuel gives him the worst news in the world. Not only that you're going to lose, you and your sons are going to die, and David is going to inherit you. King Saul takes it very hard, falls on his knees, and refuses to eat. If it would have been me, I would run away. But King Saul cannot afford himself to lose this. This is the barn of the kingdom. This is where food is. Without this, the people will starve. And because of that, King Saul will go to war that he cannot win. We are on Mount Gilboa, and once we read in the Bible, in 1 Samuel chapter 31, now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Shaul and upon his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. This is the most desperate moment of King Saul. He went to war against all odds, and he sees the enemies coming. So he's taking his arm bearers, giving him the sword and saying, kill me. His arm bearer is terrified. What do you mean? I know we're going to lose, but I'm not going to stab you. You're the king. So King Saul takes a sword and falls upon his swords after seeing his sons die. Can you imagine such a tragic end to the first king in Israel? But exactly like the fortune teller told him, once bringing the spirit of Shmuel, of Samuel, David is going to take his place. King Saul is gone. He fell on his sword and he saw his kids die before. King David shows his virtues. He shows what a great person he is by writing one of the most beautiful lamentations ever written. We're reading from 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 17. And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan, his son. I don't know if you remember, Eyal, we couldn't finish the 7th grade without knowing this lamentation by heart, because sometimes words are stronger than arrows. I can say it by heart. הצבי ישראל, על במותיך חלל, אל תבשרו בגת, אל תגידו בחוצות אשקלון פן תשמחנה בנות פלישתים פן תעלוזנה בנות הערלים. The beauty of Israel is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath, a Philistine city. Publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountain of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be no rain upon you. If you look behind me, Eyal, this is Mount Gilboa. Without man intervention, there's no natural trees that grows here. The mountain is completely bald. He gives Jonathan such a big compliment. My love to you surpassed the love of women. That's the right way to address and to respect the first king of Israel. From this moment on, David will take the lead and will take control of the whole kingdom. Come with me and let's talk about a king that was here a long time after David, King Ahab. Let's go. Welcome to Tel Israel. I'm standing right now next to some archaeological artifacts, but this is where Ahab, the King Ahab, winter palace used to be. Doesn't look that impressive, eh? It's all about location, location, location. Let's have a look at the view. Follow me. So we're standing in Tel Israel. Tel is a word for an archaeological mound. Israel in Hebrew is the valley of Jezreel, and it actually is two words. Israel, God have planted. And in order to live somewhere, even in modern times, we've got to have two necessities. One is water, and the other one is food. And just by the name, you can understand that this valley has an abundance of agriculture. This used to be the winter palace of King Ahab. And he sits here and sees the view and thinks to himself, this is all mine. But the greed in his heart will push him to want more than he have. Yeah, we just went down from the winter palace of King Ahab. And in chapter 21 in 1 King, King Ahab does exactly the same. And he comes to this beautiful vineyard, but this vineyard belongs to a person named Nevot. And he tells him, you know what? That's a nice spot. Let's trade. I'll give you better plantation than this. I just want to own this because it's close to my palace. And Nevot says, I cannot do such a thing. I have attachment to this place. I've inherited from my forefathers. Ahab is very disappointed. He goes back home a little bit depressed. It's not used to say no to the king. His wife sees him, Jezreel, and asks, what happened, honey? He says, you know what? I came to this person. I asked him. He said no. She said, don't worry. I'll take care of that. Jezreel takes two bnei bnial. According to the Bible, that's a terminology that we use to people who are sinners, who are liars, and they testify against Nevot, the owner of the plantation. And they say not only that he cursed Ahab, he also cursed God. And as a result for that, he's being stoned to death. And she comes back to King Ahab and says, honey, whatever you want, you got it. Elijah is being summoned by God. God tells Elijah, now is the time, Elijah, rise and go and talk to Ahab and Jezebel. And he says, God, do you want me dead? How can I say such a thing to the king? He says, I'm with you. Go and send my message. And he goes to Ahab and says, have you killed and taken possession? What have you done? How can you take something which is not yours, especially after death? And Elijah tells Ahab, at the same spot, the dogs are licking the blood of Nevot, dog will lick your blood. And Ahab shows regret, and he says, I'm sorry, this was a horrible mistake. And he says to him, your lineage will be over. But Jezebel, he comes to Jezebel and says, blood, it's not enough. Your flesh will be eaten by dogs. Exactly what happened. King Ahab, wanting more than he can, at the end being punished. So what is the message that we can take? Let's take the message of Gideon. I will set an example and you would follow. We always set an example, even if we're not aware to it. We set an example as parents to our kids. We set an example to our colleagues. We set an example for our neighbor. We should always strive to be better people, to give the right example. I also think we can learn a lot from the story of King Ahab. Greed. In the 10 Commandments, God talks about it. Don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't covet your neighbor's house. Don't steal. Don't lie. It's not the act itself, it's even wanting it. How can you resist such a thing? Genesis chapter 8 verse 21 says that we were born with an evil inclination. There's something within us, but God gave us the will to choose, and everyone can choose whether to take or not. You know what? It's possible. Most of us don't steal. Most of us don't cheat. We are satisfied with what we have. So how do we set a better example? How do we face not even thinking or wanting something that is not ours? This I leave to you.